Support provided by the Fred B. and Ruth B. Ziegler Foundation and the Ziegler Art Museum. Located in Jennings City Hall, the museum focuses on emerging Louisiana artists and is a historical and cultural center for Southwest Louisiana. Additional support provided by the Foundation for Excellence in Louisiana Public Broadcasting and viewers like you.
We got 3 people, 2 are kids, and the last that I know, they were getting on an air mattress because the water was getting so high.
I'm trying to get to Katy, Texas with a mud boat, but I can't figure out how to get into Katy.
Again, it's Hidden Meadow subdivision, and the water's in it's getting in all the residents' homes. So please, if someone can get there to do a rescue, it's the whole neighborhood. Thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm Andre Morrow. That is a snapshot of how the ever-expanding Cajun Navy is showing up in the Hurricane Harvey mega disaster throughout southeast Texas. In a moment, more on how heart and technology is helping neighbor help his fellow neighbor. But first, on the state we're in, some of the week's other headlines.
We are thankful that the worst case scenario, and actually the most likely scenario that was forecasted, did not play out in Louisiana.
Governor John Bel Edwards says even though the state was spared Harvey's wrath, several hundred homes and a number of businesses, mostly in southwest Louisiana, were not. Edwards says the state is helping Texas shelter people driven from their homes from high water. The governor and his wife visited Alexandria and the mega shelter, which has opened its doors for those in need. All but 2 mega shelters in Harris County, which is much of Houston, will close in the next several days. People displaced will consolidate into bigger spaces like the NRG Center and the Convention Center. NRG Center is part of the NRG Stadium complex south of downtown Houston. That's the NRG Stadium that was supposed to host LSU and BYU in the Texas Kickoff Classic Saturday night. Instead, that game moved to the Mercedes-Benz Superdome in New Orleans. Kickoff remains at 8:30. When we last saw the Tigers in action, they were routing Louisville in the Citrus Bowl. This game marks the first full season with Coach O as head coach of the Tigers. They're favored by 2 touchdowns in their first ever meeting with Brigham Young. Louisiana is getting rid of a state park, and not just any state park. Hodges Gardens, which opened in 1956 in Sabine Parish, has one of the nation's largest botanical gardens, but it's closing at the end of this month. The original owners say state government has allowed the place to crumble. With its waterfalls, rock features, and flowers, Hodges Gardens was always a showplace, but it's been in decline since I-49 became the main route connecting southwest and northwest Louisiana. Well, of the top 5 costliest natural disasters, many believe Harvey will ultimately take the place of one of those and join the ranks of the top 5. There is one aspect of Harvey and some previous recent disasters, though, that won't add a penny to those billion-dollar totals, but will make rescues and save lives. Would it surprise you that we're talking about the Cajun Navy?
Look at this. I just opened it up. The first one, please help needed, water to their neck in a matter of minutes.
Rob Goday is a member of the Cajun Navy who you won't see among the armada of volunteers heading out with their boats making rescues. But because of Rob and many dozens of other volunteers working online, an increasing number of Cajun Navy members in the field will better know how to reach people in crisis.
You go to Zello, it's an app, and everybody download that. And what that does is it stays in communications with everybody. If I call up and I say this person needs rescuing, and you say I'm close, you may say you're closer, and that's how that kind of works, and it's communication.
Yes, I need a rescue at Richmond, Texas, 77404. There's a woman there with 4 kids. I also need a rescue at CRIM Road, 77049. There's a pregnant lady there also with 4 kids.
My role's been in the technology world.
Goday is a software consultant showing me how real-time technology can address needs.
Mother, 1-month-old baby, 9-year-old, and 3 teenagers trapped in a home with rising water.
Texas.
As the flood emergency moved from greater Houston east to Beaumont, Port Arthur, and Orange, the sharing of information helps the Cajun Navy move into position to save lives. This group chat on Facebook, receiving cries for help, can share with those in the field through Zello.
We take that, we're working with the Coast Guard now and Team Rubicon helicopters. We're dispatching helicopters to help people like this.
Everyone that is needing rescuing in the area of Sugarland, please listen to me. You need to go to Rescue Rangers 2017 Hurricane Harvey. Post your address, your name, how many souls need to be rescued, and your phone number.
I look for ways to use my skill to give back. And so when the Cajun Navy came up and I saw them creating and organizing around social media, I certainly didn't create it. I got involved after it was kind of rolling on social media.
Family need help at Fern Forest Drive, Houston, Texas 77044, 2 adults and baby.
Cajun Navy shows up when people need help, whether they need to be pulled out of a house with water in it or water needs to be delivered to a shelter. The Cajun Navy is going to be there to get it done.
If Harvey is the tragic perfect storm of destruction, the Cajun Navy has emerged from a perfect combination of selflessness and technology.
I got involved and I helped set this up, but we have numerous volunteers, probably about 60 people. They're literally sitting, maybe some of them in their pajamas at their kitchen table, directing the Cajun Navy using social media and technology.
And they can be anywhere? They don't have to be in Louisiana or Texas.
My brother is in Thailand, and he's directing the Cajun Navy.
Goday says during disaster rescues, there's little sleep for those involved. It was that way during Louisiana's 1 in a 1,000-year flood of August 2016. It's that way during this ongoing event.
The Cajun Navy really sees it as a 1,000-year opportunity to give back to the community. How often do you get a chance to go and help your neighbor? For this particular disaster, we really replicated the Cajun Navy. We created the Texas Navy. You know, the Cajun Navy here in Louisiana became a rally cry for citizens here to help each other. Well, we want the Texans to have the same kind of rally cry. So we created the Texas Navy as a rally point for long-term recovery. When the platform gets set up, lo and behold, people are asking them to come save them. That wasn't something we expected to happen. And so when I saw that, I realized right away this could be really big because people were going to be going on social media and asking to be rescued from their homes. They were calling 911, they were calling the Coast Guard, every number they could find, but they were using their Facebook pages and reaching out to anybody they could find. And who did they find but the Cajun Navy? Think of what the future is going to be like for Louisiana because of this flood and the connections it's created among citizens.
Goday says the work also does not end when the waters recede. The Cajun Navy now helps people rebuild and is helping them replace many of the things they lost.
So we created a disaster registry where we go in and we look at people that lost the things in their home and we say, okay, you lost your toaster. Do you need couch? Do you need towels? Do you need curtains for your windows? Yeah, they need all of that stuff.
Everybody needs all that.
They need everything. So we put it online and we tell their story. We get their photos. We put it online and we let the nation come in and buy those items for those people. And it's worked. The need for the Cajun Navy and the Texas Navy is because authorities and systems are overwhelmed right now. That's not going to change over the next 2 or 3 years. Systems are overwhelmed for long-term recovery as well. We need a long-term vision that is citizen-led, that's volunteer-led. That is so important to start communicating right now while we have a megaphone to talk about it, because in 2 or 3 weeks, when the news starts kind of cycling a different direction, it's going to be very difficult to communicate that.
Now, I visited with Lieutenant Governor Billy Nungesser here at LPB, and he offered this description of the Cajun Navy. He's also working to give a special designation to these heroes.
It's that fisherman from South Louisiana or anyone that has a boat that has that great American pride in assisting their neighbors.
We know that we saw the name brand really emerge a year ago in the August 2016 floods. We really saw that happen as they took part in many of the rescues. But then over the weekend to see the Texas governor and mayors and city and state officials ask for people to come forward and help. And then you're seeing this group from Louisiana go there.
Right, there was a line down the highway of boats from Louisiana heading over to help our neighbors in Texas. And, we see it since Katrina, Rita, Gustav, Ike, and in Isaac on the east bank of Plaquemines when the Coast Guard wouldn't fly. There were people calling for help on rooftops, and local fishermen got in their boats and went out and rescued those people and saved lives. And we saw it in the floods last year here in Louisiana.
But you're saying that you saw it years before last year.
I think you put all those people in that same category of just great Americans reaching out and helping their neighbor and risking their own life.
How do you give them more of a certain platform other than just Good Samaritans? Because they're more than that.
Absolutely. We obviously we want to thank them and reach out to them, commend them for what they're doing. We, after the last floods, talked about some kind of ID through Volunteer Louisiana, which is under my office, and we had discussions about doing that. And after the recovery was complete, we were going to sit down and discuss that. I say we got the best people in the world here in Louisiana. We'll always reach out and help their neighbor, and very giving people, and we're lucky.
Lieutenant Governor, thank you.
Thank
Good
you
to see
so
you.
much.
To learn more about how you can help those impacted by Harvey, check out Volunteer Louisiana and volunteerlouisiana.gov. Like the Cajun Navy, it's our way of paying it forward, lending a hand as so many hands have helped us. In the aftermath of Harvey, plus an already wet summer, a number of the state's main crops have taken a hit. LPB's Kelly Spiers is here now to tell us about possible options for recovery. Kelly?
Thank you, Andre. There are many concerns, and cotton is a big one. With losses compounded by the rains of last August, Commissioner Mike Strain is worried about the viability of cotton farms. Let's take a look. It's almost harvest time for the state's cotton crop, and it's especially vulnerable this time of year.
If you're a cotton farmer, when the bolls begin to open, you definitely don't want any rain. It's not going to fluff up. It's going to be harder to pick. If we get a lot of rain, even worse is the cotton becomes so heavy in the boll that it falls out on the ground, and obviously that's a reduction in yield.
Dan Fromme is LSU Ag Center's cotton, corn, and grain sorghum specialist. If the plants still have leaves, they can be susceptible to disease.
This is just the perfect weather for target spot, which is a leaf disease. Starts at the bottom of the plant and just works its way up, prematurely defoliating the leaves before the bolls open. And then also if all this rain as well, there's another disease called boll rot, where the bolls, become speckled black and, basically just rots.
Cotton is not the only crop at risk. There's rice, corn, milo, soybean. James Bozo Cox farms cattle in Cameron Parish.
We spent the end of last week helping neighbors in the lower end of the parish move their cattle out. Because they was in more dire straits than we were.
Cox is okay for now. He lives north of the Intracoastal, has high ground on his property, and grasses that do well in wet conditions. It's not only Harvey, but how wet the summer has been as a whole that spells trouble for Cox in the fall.
Our biggest thing that we have is on the year and the conditions we've had with all the rain and the wetness, our hay crop is practically non-existent. Normally this time of the year, I've got 700-800 bales in the barn, and I've got 57 right now.
Harvey dropped rain across the state, from Cox's farm in Cameron all the way to Monroe. State Agriculture Commissioner Mike Strain says official numbers are not in, but he estimates more than 6 million acres were affected by Harvey.
We really won't know for a few weeks probably the total extent of the losses, and at the LSU Ag Center as well as the USDA, they'll be putting teams together to get that information. What we tell all of our farmers, keep good records. We need records so that we will know.
Strain says the state has had a string of bad luck with weather events, and some farmers' livelihoods are at risk.
If you take these farmers, if they're hit 2 or 3 times in a row, well, they're out of business. If you run out of assets, if you don't have something that the bankers will loan you money on, right? You can't get a loan. If you can't get a loan, you can't replant.
Farmers have a number of programs they can turn to once counts are official, if a federal disaster is declared. If they have crop insurance, that can help too, but in certain circumstances, that can still leave farmers hanging.
Say you have 1,000 acres of rice, and you have 60% coverage. You bought 60%, right? You harvested 600 acres. 400 acres is 100% total loss. You don't get 60% of 400 acres. You've already harvested 60% of that entire 1,000 acres, so your payment with a total loss of 400 acres that you had insured is zero.
Strain says there needs to be another path for farmers to seek disaster relief. He's working with Texas officials and others to get an amendment to the Farm Bill. A rewrite is in drafting stages in Washington.
Or that we develop another type of crop insurance that you can buy over and above the crop insurance you have that would be reasonably priced, that would only kick in a major hurricane or storm event. Something that is reasonable, and then do it that way. But we have to do something.
For now, Strain says, hope for better weather.
We're really hoping that we get a dry time. We need at least a week of dry weather where we can get these crops out, get them harvested, before another potential storm could hit, which could be here in as little as 11 days.
Strain also warns that due to the rain, the mosquito population could explode in the coming days. They carry disease for humans and animals too. He also says that farmers need to keep an eye on the Gulf so that they can be prepared as much as they can be if another storm comes this way. Andre?
Yeah, great advice, great information, Kelly. Thank you for that. And next week, Kelly's going to be talking with U.S. Representative Garrett Graves about flood insurance. The National Flood Insurance Program has to be reauthorized by the end of this month. They will discuss how Harvey recovery could impact debate about the program. Now, President Trump is returning to the region this weekend for a second visit in a week. He and the First Lady are scheduled to make a stop in Lake Charles and some other places along the way. That's tomorrow, Saturday, September 2nd. He was in Corpus Christi, Texas this past Tuesday. Well, as we transition into September, a reminder about the new Ken Burns, Len Novick Vietnam documentary. Their 10-part series, The Vietnam War, premieres Sunday night, September 17th. That's at 7 o'clock right here on LPB and PBS. A Shreveport Vietnam veteran is working to shed the ghosts of war after all these years. He says they never go away, but he's written a book, Boots in the Grass, which he says helps him cope with difficult memories. He believes it can help veterans of any war do the same. To watch Walter Delphin running his private detective agency, you wouldn't believe the struggles he had endured because of his service in Vietnam. They are hardships that many veterans undergo because of having to kill or be killed and then having to live with the memories. Delphin had his first deadly encounters within hours of his arriving at Vietnam.
I heard a lot of commotion, automatic weapon fire, explosions, and I got up from the bunk and ran out and asked what was going on. They informed me that the VC was coming through the perimeter fence I had in certain areas, and they was blowing up bunkers. I had not been issued a weapon, and I looked out and I saw two airmen firing at VC coming through the fence. One of them got hit by an RPG, and I ran out and got his rifle. But I looked up on the hillside and I saw where there was two snipers that was keeping some men pinned down behind some vehicles near the mess hall. And I could also see two VC lobbing mortar shells onto the air base. So I got the weapon, I took out the two snipers and the mortar team.
That same day, Delphin ran into a soldier who was distraught over being among only 3 Americans in 3 platoons to survive an attack by the Viet Cong.
One of them was just wiping his sleeve, just saying it don't mean nothing over and over, it don't mean nothing. And that was a saying while I Vietnam I heard many times, because the soldiers in Vietnam didn't think that the American people cared about them.
A colonel in charge of Delphin's unit quickly learned of his exceptional marksmanship, a skill he learned while hunting squirrels with his father in rural Natchitoches Parish. The colonel assigned him to a special ops team.
Espo told me, said he was going to be, he'd be the spotter and I'd be the rifleman. He'd give the orders as what targets, if there was ever a sniper situation, a certain targets, the people to take out.
Delphin and Espo remained partners for much of his 18-month stay in Vietnam. Delphin says as if fighting the enemy were not traumatic enough, he also experienced racism among American troops. His mostly white unit accepted him among their brothers in war until someone discovered he was of mixed blood.
I looked out in the gun pit and all of my belongings was thrown on the ground. My photos and everything was just blowing in the wind. And I got out of there and my question was, I said, what in the hell is going on here? I I said, what is this about? And there was a guy who I thought was a good friend of mine. He was leaning against a bunker. And his exact words, quote, "We will not sleep with a nigger in Vietnam." That was a devastating moment. And there was a lieutenant. He said, "Delphin, I see in your military record it says that you colored." I said, "That's what it says." And he came, brought my files out there and showed them to all these guys that I had been living with all this time, and created a racial issue.
After that incident, Delphin says he was flown by chopper the following day to meet with the colonel. By the time he returned to his base, the discrimination had ended, but the scars remained. When he left Vietnam, he had witnessed the death of many of the people he had come to know. He also learned of the loss of one of his closest friends, Michael Camerlengo, and was responsible for the deaths of many enemy forces. But the soldier's physical agony didn't end when he got off the plane in the United States.
As soon as we walked through the gate and I stepped outside, I got hit in the face with a condom of urine. That was welcome home. And for years, that haunted me. There was a time that I felt a little pride of having gone to Vietnam and done what my country sent me to do. But when I came through that gate, a lot of things changed.
To add to Delphin's agony, his wife asked him for a divorce, and he failed to help his special operations partner come to grips with the tragedies of war. The veteran committed suicide within a few feet of Delphin.
I told him, I said, you know, it's hard to shake the ghost of Vietnam. Every night since then, I have the nightmares. It's play over and over in my mind. I said, we did what we thought we had to do at the time.
Delphin felt himself spiraling out of control with drinking and other vices until he made a trip to New Orleans and ran across a fellow veteran.
I saw 2 feet sticking out, and as I approached that doorway, I heard, "It don't mean nothing. It don't mean nothing." I looked at him. It was the same soldier I saw in that tent the day I arrived in Vietnam.
Delphin said it was then that he decided to pull himself together to avoid a similar plight. It was also much of the reason behind his book, Boots in the Grass, to help other veterans overcome the scars of war.
I started running 5 or 6 miles every evening. After about the first week, sometimes I was running 15, 16 miles, and sometimes evenings I'd run further than that. When I'd come home, exhausted, take a shower, I could sleep better.
His primary message to veterans coming home from war?
Write about it, tell about it, talk about it. Don't spend 40 years and not talk about those things. Get it out.
Delphin was then able to hold a job, and he eventually married Edna Gallion after several failed relationships. The marriage led to what Delphin says has been the greatest joy of his life, his daughter, Sarah Catherine.
After she was born, I would leave home, go on trips with Sarah, just the 2 of us. I'd take, even as an infant, we left home, go to Cane River for the weekend, visit my mom. We'd go on trips to California, and as she got older, we went on all these family trips. And she's still my little girl.
Delphin also says he came to understand and appreciate the Vietnam protests, that more people would have been killed without them, he says. He's working right now on a sequel to Boots in the Grass. Online right now at lpb.org, The Vietnam War, Louisiana Remembers. Here are our growing collection of Vietnam oral histories with veterans and others. It's in our Louisiana Digital Media Archives. Here's a reminder about a fascinating program that premieres on LPB and PBS this Sunday, September 3rd.
Right then you knew you had something just totally different than what you've ever seen in the Gulf of 25 years of diving, so it was quite magnificent.
What dive shop owner Chaz Broughton discovered off the coast of Alabama has come to be known as the underwater forest. What is it exactly, and how did it get there? Well, you can watch Sunday, September 3rd at 4 o'clock with an encore presentation. That is September 6th at 10 p.m. You know, we've seen images of disaster day after day since Harvey first made landfall a week ago. And now we're seeing images that speak to the brotherhood. Texas hugging Louisiana here. The tremendous unity that life's storms can bring. This is one image that, for me, stands out. And that is our show for this week. Remember, you can watch LPB on demand on your phone or tablet with our LPB Anywhere app. The download is free from your app store. You can catch LPB news and public affairs shows as well as other Louisiana programs that you've come to enjoy over the years. And please like us on Facebook as well. For everyone at Louisiana Public Broadcasting, I'm Andre Morrow. Thanks for watching. Until next time, that's the state we're in.
Check us out on Facebook and Twitter, and visit lpb.org, where you can view more stories and leave us a comment. This program is available on DVD. Support provided by the Fred B. and Ruth B. Ziegler Foundation and the Ziegler Art Museum. Located in Jennings City Hall, the museum focuses on emerging Louisiana artists and is a historical and cultural center for Southwest Louisiana. Additional support provided by the Foundation for Excellence in Louisiana Public Broadcasting and viewers like you.